This is Will Montgomery, former Washington Redskins center.
Yo, what's good, folks? This is Trey Johnson, the headbanger, yo, and you're listening to Mess Hall with Rally Captain and Tailgate Ted. Word.
What's going on, Rally? Happy Victory Monday, man.
Happy Victory Monday to you, my brother, and all of the listeners worldwide. That's right. I didn't say DMV. I said worldwide. Ted, let's get it, bro.
Amen, man. We might have to change and get the DMV part out of there, because that was a concern I had when we were coming up with the name, because I know we got a lot of people listening. And, man, it was refreshing to just be at FedEx Field, number one, after being in Chicago last week. And running into so many listeners. I'm in the security line. I'm walking around the lower concourse. I'm walking around the parking lot trying to get in the stadium and trying not to be rude to anybody, but I don't miss kickoff. And man, it was so nice to see so many people. And I actually took a couple of pictures with them while we were hanging out that listened to the show.
Well, you know what? The same thing happened to me, but like you, my mind wasn't in the right space to take pictures. My mind was trying to get to my seat, or I was trying to go to the bathroom or something. So you know how that is. But next time, guys, if you are a listener and you spot me, I will take a picture with you. And that's my bad.
Yeah, it was, man, such a good vibe out the stadium. I mean, regardless before the game, because Green Bay is one of those stadiums that I've always wanted to go to, but whenever we play them, I'm from the islands. It's a little too cold for me in December in Lambeau, so I just haven't gone. So I haven't had a chance, but I've always heard that Green Bay fans are so nice and so polite, and they just treat you so well if you're a visiting team fan. And I've always wanted FedEx to feel like Green Bay South. So we try and be nice to all those Packers fans that we're visiting. I'm curious, what was the vibe for you? Because you get a chance to walk around. I was basically a prisoner at the tailgate because I had so much stuff going on this weekend.
Yeah, I did try to stop by and see you in my journeys, as I always do at the stadium. Man, it was a lively crowd with the different tailgates that I stopped at, and the people, like I said, like you said, from Green Bay were very accommodating. And I mean, obviously there's a little jaw jacking, but it's just in good common, sportsmanship. So we had a good time, and I just felt that this was going to be a good game, and it was, man.
It was, and we'll get to the game here in a little bit. And I was kind of surprised at how many Packers fans I met, and I was asking them, thanks for visiting. How long are you guys in town for? And they were from Greenbelt, and they're from Frederick, and they're from Warrenton. And I get the Packers are a popular team, but I was just shocked to see how many of them are in the DMV.
Yeah. Well, the guy who was sitting next to me, he was from Kentucky. They drove up, and he posted it on my Instagram. I took a picture with his son, who's a huge Green Bay Packers fan. And me and the little kid, he's probably, I don't know, 9, but the kid knew football, man. I mean, he really did. And so we took a picture together, and his one thing that his dad said, and he tagged me on the photo. He said, the team didn't win, but I had an awesome time sitting next to this guy, and that's all I want, man. If you're an opposing team fan, and you come to FedEx, of course I want your team to lose, but I'm going to welcome you the way I want to be welcomed in an away stadium. And that's just the right way to do it, because all this other stuff that goes on, there's no need for it. Those guys fight on the field. We're fans, and let's be good to each other. You know what I mean? So
Oh, yeah,
I had a
man.
good time, man.
I always say, hate the team, pray for the fan. And,
Right.
I used to travel to a majority of the away games and go to all of them. And I remember being in Dallas when we won there and how respectful those Cowboy fans were to me, even though, and this was before StubHub, right? This was before, you could buy tickets from resale markets. I met this guy on Craigslist and met him at a 7-Eleven because he said he had an extra ticket. And I didn't know what to expect. I'm in Dallas by myself, just trying to find a ticket to the game. And next thing I know, the guy pulls up. I'm not wearing any burgundy and gold. I'm not wearing any Redskins gear at the time. And then I see him at the game, and he sees me all decked out in my jersey and everything else. He's like, man, if you would have worn that when I saw you in the parking lot, I never would have stopped. I just would have kept on going. So yeah, there's a reason why I didn't wear any of that stuff, because I knew you wouldn't have did that. But they couldn't have been nicer. They were buying me beers. And I know what it's like to be at a visiting stadium, just like you obviously do.
Yeah.
And try and not let the game ruin the experience for them with all the other or extracurricular stuff happening in the stands. And that's why the Eagles games are usually not a ton of fun. And I spoke to a commander's executive, and he was saying, a lot of people sold their tickets to that game. Well, that's just kind of the rap you get because they don't want to be around other Eagles fans, so they just don't go. In the past, Redskins fans used to sell your Cowboys game or your Eagles game just to pay for your season tickets for the entire season. And I can't fault them for that if that's how they got to make it and actually get the tickets.
Yeah.
But it was good, and it was refreshing to see the Packers fans in the stands that were being respectful.
Yeah.
And
I didn't hear anybody being disrespectful. I mean, normally, behind me or to the sides of me, I might hear some jaw jacking. I didn't hear that at all, man. And so I was really, really surprised that there was nothing. I mean, like you said, it was, hey, when they cheered when their team was up, and they sat down and was quiet when their team was down, man. I mean, it was amazing to me. So I had to look around and make sure that everything was good. But it seems to me that's just their innate behavior, man.
Yeah. And I'd welcome them back anytime to FedEx Field, especially.
Definitely.
We've beaten them 4 times straight at FedEx Field.
That's right.
Anytime y'all cheeseheads want to come back, you're more than welcome to, because we got your number. And it was an interesting game, man. It was definitely an interesting game. And you picked them to win. I picked them to win this past week. And I watched a couple of other podcast shows and some other shows on YouTube and hearing, the sports junkies. Nobody was choosing us. Nobody thought we could pull this thing out just because of Aaron freaking Rodgers.
Yep.
And after you and I recorded the show on Wednesday, I saw the injury report come out that Rodgers did not practice. Now, obviously, he played the game. I'm like, you guys couldn't have had this injury report come out sooner. When Rally and I were recording the show, it would have been nice to have that knowledge, but it didn't affect how you and I felt about the game. And really, I think how we broke it down during our show last week is how it came down to it. Rodgers didn't have the weapons that he was used to. Lazard was really the only guy they had. And there were a couple times where Lazard got a mismatch in coverage. And I think he might have had, I'm not trying to knock Wild Goose because he had a heck of a game.
Oh, yeah, he did.
There's no reason for that rookie to be covering the only weapon they have on their team. But other than that, they played all 3 phases of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. And other than Joey Sly missing that kick, I'd say it was almost a damn near perfect performance that was close to 4 quarters of a game.
Yeah, I would have liked, obviously, for Scott to call just one good boot for Heinicke.
I was thinking about that on the way home, man. I hit, hey, Google on my phone because I'm driving, like, how many yards did Taylor Heinicke have? And when I heard how many he finished with rushing, I was like, oh, damn, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, man. Yeah. But hey, you know what? That's the way it is. That's why they call it gambling. So for everybody that don't know, I'm not a gambling man, but I decided to put a little wager down that Taylor Heinicke would get above 10.5 yards, in essence, 11 yards. He didn't get that. And so I lost my little bit of a bet, but so, hey, it is what it is. That was my first and probably last time that I'll do it, but I was feeling good. So I just wanted to give it a shot. You know what I mean? And so
I don't blame you, man.
Yeah. It didn't work out there. So,
I actually ended up putting in a 4-leg parlay. And for those of you people that aren't bettors, it means that all 4 things you choose have to happen. So I picked the Commanders they were getting 5.5 points. So they either had to cover that or they had to win, and we won. Antonio Gibson had to have over 35 yards. Terry had to have over 50 yards. And then Robert Tonyan had to have 32.5 yards. Robert Tonyan is a wide receiver from the Packers, and he had 32 yards. So he's a tight end for the Packers. I'm like, he couldn't get a half a yard. a half a yard more. Right? And I might be able to pay for a trip to Indy because right now my bank account can't cut it, but a half a yard more, I might have been able to go to Indy with you. And that was frustrating. But just like you said, that's why they call gambling.
Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. Well, Ted, I gotta tell you, man, I am just over elated with our squad, man. I really am,
I can
and
see the
no,
smile.
I'm not. Hey, that's right, all 32. I always say that. No, I'm not claiming the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it for once, other than the penalties,
Playoffs.
other than the
Playoffs?
penalties,
You kidding me?
I
Playoffs?
really do believe that if we could have been just a little bit better from the penalty side of the house, man, we would have run away with this game. But I understand, like, it's a part of the game, albeit a bad part, but we had a lot of penalties, man. But other than that, I really liked what I saw. And I'm not gonna break it down too much, but I'm happy that my man is William Jackson is out, man. I really am, and not that not I'm happy that he's injured. So I don't want you people to think that. I'm happy that he's not playing because I see a different side of our secondary with him not being in the game, man. I just do. Whether it be communication, whether it be just young, spry, basically kids, playing. Because the only veteran realistically is Fuller. I mean, and Curl.
Yeah,
And
you
I
got
don't.
Fuller and Cam. So
Yeah, but that's basically it. These other guys, man, they're young dogs, man, and they're hungry. They're hungry for that bite to get a good bite, man, and they're doing it, bro.
they are. And what was surprising was Jack Del Rio's game plan. And for those that have not heard, we only blitzed one time the entire
Mhm.
game. Their game plan was to rush four and then have the back end play coverage and have those four guys rushing, stay in their lanes, don't let Rodgers scramble and get
Right.
pressure.
Yeah.
And they did. This was the first time in Aaron Rodgers' career that he did not convert a third down.
Can you believe that?
In his entire career, that he did not get a third down. They were 0 for 6 on third down. I mean, our offense held the ball, I want to say, for 25 minutes more than the Packers. I mean, they had it's 25 more plays than the Packers did. And from a time of possession perspective, we had the ball 37 minutes. They had the ball 22 minutes. I mean, the defense was fresh. These were the things that we did not see when Carson was in there. And we all know that the offense did not move well other than that Jags game when Carson was there. So there were a lot of 3 and outs. I mean, from a third down conversion perspective, trying to see where we were 7 for 16 on third down and they were 0 for 6. So could have been better, but you're talking close to 50% on third down and you've got some long drives. We held the ball 12 out of 15 minutes for the entire third quarter. So that entire time, your defense is just relaxing. They're hanging out and they're getting a chance to, game plan for the next possession coming up. And it's all because of what Taylor was able to do. And Scott Turner, to a degree, man, I saw some real just ingenious play calling. And I wanted to text you during the game when, Armani Rodgers was in the Wildcat, because I know it's the opposite end zone from you, but I wanted to see, he's like, hey, did you see that? That's a Wildcat right there. I mean, just some different stuff.
Our emergency quarterback. See, I'm telling you, man, you guys go ahead and admit that you listen to this show. All right. Just go ahead and admit that you listen to this show and we'll be okay. All right.
It was exciting to see because they were putting guys in position. And I went back and watched the game today. So I had to do a thing on Fox 5, and I didn't usually watch the show before our show. And I saw wide receivers blocking downfield. I saw Cam Sims just opening up holes and sealing out DBs. I saw Curtis Samuel. And for those of you that are wondering, it's Monday, the 24th at 5:30. Watch our YouTube channel because I'm going to put some of those clips up there. You got Curtis Samuel faking on an end around. And next thing you know, Heinicke gives it to Robinson, and Samuel is his lead blocker. He's out there clearing the way. And it's just, it was a full on team game, and we have not seen that. And I think that's the Heinicke effect. I think that's because the guys in that locker room, they love him and they want to do anything for him and they want to see him succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what, man? I told you, and I'm gonna pat myself on the back. All right, I'm gonna give myself a little kudos. I said Taylor was gonna come out the first half. He was gonna be a little rough around the edges.
A little.
But well, hey,
that's more than a little, man. That was sandpaper rough.
hey, I told you it was going to happen, but then I said he's going to get the feel of the game, second quarter, second half, and we're going to win this game. I said that.
You did.
All right.
I was thinking about that today when I'm prepping for the show. And Taylor was 7 of 17 for 39 yards with a pick 6 in the 1st half.
Yep.
And Mark Bullock does a breakdown. If you guys don't follow Mark, you're missing out. The guy does a great breakdown for all the Commander stuff.
Yeah.
He basically said 4 or 5 more of Heinicke's passes could have been picked off, and they could have. And there was a woman sitting behind me that I swear she wanted to pour her beer on me because I said, just Heinicke looked horrible. It's like he's good for 1 turnover a game. And no joke, 2 plays later, pick 6. And she said, you got to keep your mouth shut. I was like, I'm sorry. I just call it like I see it. He was throwing ducks out there and I don't know what happened. And it almost reminded me of receivers were used to Carson getting the ball to him, where the ball was there when they would turn around. And when Taylor threw it, you've got to make a break on the ball. You've got to run towards the ball.
Right.
And we saw that in the second half. We saw those adjustments in the second half where, you know, on that 1 3rd down, Terry came back and fought for that ball. But in the first half, he definitely was rusty. He definitely had to knock those cobwebs off and get the feel for it. But this is actually Terry McLaurin talking about his quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, Taylor has a lot of energy in the way he approaches playing this game of football, and you can just tell he plays free-spirited, and I think it's a lot of what he's been through in his career as a player, as a person. He plays like it's his last game every single time, and I think that energy just, you know, spreads throughout this team, and you just want to be able to make that play to elevate him. And, you know, he's been in these situations before, but it's hard to come and try to win a game when you haven't played all season. And for him to give our receivers a chance to make plays, for him to extend plays with his legs, get first downs, the energy he brings to our sideline, I think is huge. And we're very fortunate to have him on our team. And you know, we're going to keep trying to do all that we can to support him.
And for those that are hearing that buzz, don't blame me. That's the Commander's audio from their press conference. They need new microphones, just like you and I got. But Taylor extended those plays, and he was only sacked, I think, once. Yeah, I'm only seeing 1 sack here for -3.
Pressured a lot, but sacked once.
But he knew where to go, and he knew how to get out of it. And I'm not saying the offensive line has gotten better.
No.
He just gets guys more motivated. There was a picture in the locker room of John Allen and Taylor. And I mean, did you see the picture?
No.
I got to send it to you. I'll text it to you after this. I mean, there was some man love going on right there. I mean, those guys, and it's not that they don't like Carson. Yeah. It's not that they don't like Carson. It's just Taylor is that dude. He's that guy that gets a $125,000 bonus if he wins, and he goes and buys a pair of Jordans the next day. You know, he's not this $1 million quarterback that's living in a mansion and just counting all of his money. He's a regular guy like them, and he's got friends in every part of that locker room. And that underdog mentality he has, I think, is why the other players love him so much, and why a lot of this fan base loves him so much.
Yep. And, you know, one thing that we can admit to, Ted, is football is a game of seconds and inches. And what I mean by that is, so obviously with Taylor, he realizes the inefficiencies, I believe, in the line. And the mere fact that that second that he can move to the left or move to the right and give himself that 1 inch that he needs to get the ball out. Whereas I believe Carson wouldn't see anything and just would tuck the ball and take that sack. Whereas with Taylor, what I really am seeing, and what we've seen basically from his debut against Tampa Bay a couple years back in the playoff game, is he feels his way around. And one of his advantages is the fact that he's a little smaller and he can duck that rush. We saw it. It happens all the time. He'll give a good pump fake, get the guys up on their tiptoes, and just duck right underneath them and squirt that ball out, man. And that's what I like about the guy. He can make something happen when it looks like there's nothing to happen.
Yeah, man. It's that backyard football. It's just you run to the street post and the guy's scrambling around trying to buy time. And this is actually what Taylor talked about in his press conference.
Absolutely. Again, 2 years ago, I was out of the league. So, every time I go out in that field, it's an opportunity for me to go play like it's my last time, because you never know. Just never know. So I'm just glad we got there and got that win today. This coverage, what I do, if they're in that coverage, what I do, where's my hot, and go from there and play ball. So, again, I play best when I don't think too much, when I just go out there and kind of react. And rely on my studying throughout the week. So, to answer your question, I don't know.
You obviously didn't have the start you wanted, some incompletions, the pick six, whatever. But you bounced back from that. Why do you think you were able to kind of put that stuff behind and just kind of go out and have the game be?
Yeah, so the first half, I had some jitters. Again, haven't played a full game in a long time, and I was excited. So there's a lot of missed throws there in the first half, but the promising thing was I was on all the right reads. You kind of go back and look at the tablet, and I was throwing to the right guys, just wasn't completing them. So that that's promising in the fact that you can change that. You can kind of work on that and change it, just complete the ball. So the second half, I feel like I did that a lot better, and yeah.
And he definitely did a lot better in the second half. And we talked about how we finished 20 of 33 after go with 7 for 17, and the reacting versus thinking thing, it speaks volumes, because we talked about Jamin Davis how they tried to play him at Mike, and he's thinking too much. He's not able to do it. Now they moved him back to his outside spot, and he had a heck of a game too, making a bunch of solo tackles out there in open space, just reading defenses. And it's the same thing with Taylor, where he's done all the prep during the week. And you always hear the coach talk about, we had a good week of practice. We had a good week of practice. What does that mean? Well, that means the guys are prepared and they know different scenarios and what's going to happen. And they had a chance to watch that film and break things down. But the thing that's different with Taylor is he knows where his guys are going to be. And there was one throw he made, and I'm not sure if you saw this picture online. I'm going to assume you didn't, but it was the last throw he had to Terry to get that first down. My man Homer McFanboy took a picture of it. Taylor's eyes were closed. He was about to get leveled, and his eyes were completely closed. He just threw the ball to where Terry was supposed to be, trusting him. And it's that part, because he knows the system. He's been with Scott Turner for 6 years. He's been in this system for several years, and he knows where his guys are going to go. And that is the advantage he has over Carson. Carson's got the arm. Carson has all of the athletics. Taylor has the knowledge on where things should be, or where his receivers are going to be, or his checkdowns. Because there were a couple times where I don't know how he even saw JD out there or Rodgers out there for a check down, but he knew that's where the guy's supposed to go. And it goes back to Rivera talking about, you do your assignment, don't do more than that. And then everything else will fall into place. And today was a perfect example of that.
Yesterday.
You're right. Yesterday. Yeah. I'm still on a high. Yesterday was a perfect example.
I feel you, bro. I was like, wait a minute. Did we play last afternoon?
But I'm curious. I mean, what were your takeaways from just getting the chance to watch him in the first half? You had a lot of people in the stands that were yelling for Howell in my section, saying, put the kid in, get Heinicke out of here. And then what we saw in the second half was just a completely different quarterback and a completely different team.
Yeah. It's like when it's 4th down and 1, and you're in punt formation, and the punter, for whatever reason, doesn't punt the ball and decides to take off. And you're like, no. And he gets the first down. Yeah. All right. Yeah. That's what it's like. it was a roller coaster, brother. I will say that. I wasn't calling for him to come out because realistically, you just don't want to put Howell in that situation. I mean, don't get me wrong. At some point in time, he is going to get some playing time. Don't know when it's going to happen, but I honestly believe that he will get some. But you want it to be the right time for him to do it, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to just thrust him into a game just because Heinicke's not doing well, because we saw we didn't thrust Heinicke in the game when Carson wasn't doing well, even though we did pay him the amount of money that we paid him. So sometimes you just gotta let things work themselves out and play themselves out. And this was a situation where I okay, so I always say this. If I'm just a fan and I'm not getting paid millions of dollars, and I saw that he was going to come in and basically do what he did, the coaches could see that as well. Now, these other fans, which, hey, they're our brothers and sisters, but we all have a difference of opinions. So I just knew that, hey, look, let the man get his legs underneath him and he'll be okay. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. He definitely needed to get some reps in. He definitely needed to get a chance to feel the game again, just because it's different when you're running the scout team. It's different when you're not out there and you're not throwing to, the typical receivers. But when he finally got a chance to get that groove, it was something that we just haven't seen in a while. And I'm not saying that this is a turning point in a long season that's just been more downs and ups. What I'm saying is we finally got a chance as a fan base to see exciting football.
At home. Yeah.
At home. The Titans game was exciting. Don't get me wrong. It just came down to that final drive. But all I ask for is competitive football into December. I don't know how many times we've been knocked out of it. And December, it's empty and we're just flooded with away team fans. As long as the games are exciting, yes, I do care the end result, but I'm not going to be pissed. If we get blown out and they don't compete, that's when I get angry.
Yeah.
But if you played your heart out and I know you left it all on the field and hey, the other team gets paid too, then I'm fine with it and I'll live with it and I'll, be there to root another day. But this was Rivera talking about the first half versus second half.
The difference between Taylor from the first half to the second half is pretty stark, much better than the second half. Just what do you think contributed to that, and was it maybe just he needed to settle down?
Kenny and Scott talking about Taylor as far as his timing in terms of going through his progression, getting the ball out quicker, and not hesitating. It's one of those things that when he's up there and he's playing fearless and very quick and gets the ball out on time, it allows for those types of plays.
And I do think that Taylor was worried about throwing some of those passes where if he just would have pulled the trigger, and you said it like a second earlier, then those balls wouldn't have been close to being intercepted or they would have been batted down and it just would have gave the receivers more time. And I think he had to build that confidence up. And once he got it, then I don't want to say the sky's the limit, but we all saw what happened. And the defense and special teams, everybody has that young man's back. And that is what is so exciting to see.
You saw in the beginning as well, he started, the balls were behind the receivers and he just wasn't connecting with them. And then like you said, hey, I got to realize the speed of the game. It's a lot faster than the practice squad. So, and just practicing period, game time, everybody's amped up and you've got to be just a little bit quicker. And one thing that I think that I'm sure they're going to talk to him about is when he has that arm up in the air, him patting that ball 2-3 times. I don't know where he gets that from, but when that arm goes up, he's got to let it go. But we saw he likes to pat the ball. Maybe that's a comfort zone thing for him. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Favre used to do that. He's a longtime Packers fan. I want to go back and see if that was a thing that he picked up from him, just from watching all his games and growing up and seeing that. But it was refreshing to see someone actually run this offense, to see, the offense executed with the weapons we have. And that was without Jahan Dotson, who will hopefully be back versus the Colts. But who knows? It's a soft tissue thing with his hammy. And that's without Logan Thomas. And he even lost Cole Turner during the game because Turner ended up having a concussion. So
Yeah.
doing that with Terry and Curtis, and he had some nice passes to Antonio. And I went back and watched the film on that touchdown. That route that Antonio ran, Scott Turner's play design had Cam Sims and Antonio basically stacked right beside each other. Cam broke out to the post corner of the end zone, and AG went inside the middle, and both defenders went with Cam. AG was wide open, but AG's experience as a wide receiver, he caught that ball and then toe tapped to make sure he got both feet in bounds. And I know that was right in your end zone there.
Yep.
And I mean, it was a thing of beauty, just so well executed and so well designed. And I'm sorry, I'm not putting two people on Cam Sims. And not to knock Cam Sims, but he's not a world beater. AG to me is the threat there. And that was just the Packers. I don't know if it was just miscommunication on their part or what it was, but we took advantage of it. And they were 0 for 4 in the red zone in Lambeau. We weren't much better. We were 1 for 4 this time. But that one touchdown was huge because you felt the momentum shift after AG got that. And like, all right, we're still in this. We're not behind by that much. This isn't the same Packers that we're used to. Let's just go to work.
Yeah. And anytime you can get Aaron Rodgers saying, "What the bleep are we doing?" several times, you know he's having a bad day. I mean, I read his lips and he was like, "What the bleep are we doing?" I mean, he said it several times, which lets me know that they're not on the same page. The play calling, what he thinks that should be called versus what LaFleur is calling, they're not on the same page. And I, for one, loved it.
Yeah, man. There's
I
dissension in Wisconsin right now. I mean,
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers said in his postgame presser, Washington's defense didn't have to do a whole lot against the Packers. It was all two highs, some match, occasional drop down safety, but they didn't really do a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then Matt LaFleur on Washington's lack of blitzing said, I don't know what that tells us. No, they didn't. They played pretty soft. They're going to try to let us dink and dunk down the field. There are a lot of two shell playing soft. We still couldn't move up the field. And that, to me, we knew that Green Bay, they're not on the same page. I don't know how many drops they had, but those receivers, I don't want to say I feel for Rodgers, but I love seeing him pissed off.
Oh, yeah.
And just seeing him throw his tantrum. And there's that meme going around right now with Rodgers just lying face down in the ground at the end of the game when they lateraled that ball, it felt like, for 10 minutes.
Oh, my God. Man, let me tell you, bro. I was saying, I can't believe this is happening in front of me, man. I mean, I've seen it on TV, but I've never witnessed it to that extent. I may have seen maybe one lateral, maybe even two, but I think they did 6. And it just felt like it was going on and on and on. But hey, they made the mistake, and whoever he threw the ball to couldn't catch it. The lineman, the lineman couldn't catch it. So we came out victorious, and that's all that matters. So, I am ready for Indianapolis, and Matt Ryan isn't starting. I'm sure you heard that.
I saw that he got benched. But I mean, I'm like Doc Walker. I want to bask in this for 24 hours. Rivera,
I got you, baby. I got you.
Rivera came in and did his press conference at 11 o'clock today. And he did that because he gave the guys 2 days off. So typically Monday, they come in, they review film, they get treatment, and then Tuesday's their day off. The guys have off until Wednesday. And, that's just something that the players appreciate. And they get a chance to spend time with their families. They get a chance to, build Legos. They get a chance to go to the mall and just do different stuff. And, Sam Cosme and Heinicke love Legos, if those of you that don't know. But it's the little rewards like that build that team camaraderie. Like, man, we got to do this again.
Yeah.
Let's get this. This is awesome.
Huge incentive. I mean,
yeah.
Point blank period. That right there is an exclamation point. If we win, I can have an extra day off. Well, along with my salary. So let's go ahead and do our best so we can win, man. And like you said, man, the tide, I'm not gonna say it's turned. It's it's in progress. It's turning. And, like you said, man, I just want to be happy right now and get ready to do what we got to do later this week.
Yeah. And during Ron's press conference, one of the reporters actually asked him this question.
What's the big picture? You guys are obviously 3-4. Everything's still in front of you, but the division has kind of gone wild this year.
Okay.
But what do you tell them about chasing those goals and what's in front of you?
Playing one at a time. We can't worry about what anybody else does. We got to focus on just us, and we'll see what happens. But if we take care of our business, do things that we're capable of, and playing one at a time, we got a chance. And we just got to keep trying to stack wins and just keep stacking.
And once again, I'm sorry about that audio quality. That's just what the Commanders put out there, so I can't really change it. But you've got Commanders, Redskins, Washington football team fans going through playoff scenarios right now. And I get it. We're all happy. We are all excited. I'm not trying to poo-poo anybody's and rain on their parade or whatever it is. But let's just get to 500. Let's get through this week and see what we can do. And then we got Kirky coming back here at FedEx and then see what happens there. Let's just, I don't want to call this, one game at a time, Dave Martinez, Washington Nationals, 19-32, and we end up winning a ring. Let's just enjoy the ride because this was a fun game, and let's just see what these guys can do because the division has gone crazy. We're not going to win it, obviously. The way the Eagles are playing right now, we're not catching them. They're undefeated unless something catastrophic happens. But on top of that, the Giants beat the Jags this past week, and they're still winning. And the Cowboys also won. So you've got to control the controllables. If Green Bay was a playoff team or a wild card team, we now have a tiebreaker over them. And I'm not saying that we're going to make the playoffs. What I'm saying is down the road in the scenario where they do have that extra wild card team. So 7 teams make it now. If there is a tiebreaker scenario, we now have it over Green Bay. Right. Okay, we play Indianapolis, not a division team, but you still need that W to potentially get to 500. And then, hey, NFC team with the Vikings, Kirk. Kirk wants revenge. You know what? I do too. Screw you, Kirk. You didn't want to be here. You strung us along with a whole franchise tag for all those years. And I can't wait to give you hell when you walk back into that stadium because it's not going to be a homecoming for you. None of us want you back. And I got a Cousins jersey that is signed that I might light on fire at the tailgate, but we'll see how it goes. I might. I got yelled at for doing that years ago. Don't tell Fred that I lit one of his Vikings jerseys on fire a long time ago. But
but he didn't.
Fred, if you're listening,
no,
Fred didn't sign.
Yeah.
No, it was a Vikings jersey that we ended up torching years ago, and the tailgate used to be rowdier than it is now. It used to be not as let's just say it was rowdier than it used to be right now.
Older.
But
you're older, more wiser.
Yeah, some, including Mrs. Tailgate, might disagree with the more wiser part, but I am older, and I'm feeling it this morning because we had a couple hundred people out there, and it's just been such a long week running around and everything else, and I'm feeling it now. It's almost to the point of I want to get an ice bath the second I get home because I just got some bumps and bruises from doing all that heavy lifting.
Bro, who you telling, man? I was just saying that. It's like it's a full day. People don't understand. It's a full day. It's almost like a 15-hour day, man. So, I want to say big shout out to Jeff, the DJ from 106.7, the fan, for your tailgate DJ, man. He did a good job.
Yeah, no, Jeff Too Funny was out there. And we had people from Be The Match out there. I think this was the most swabs that they have ever done at an event, and it was 2.5 hours. So, I mean, it wasn't like an all-day thing, and it was just so great to hear and so great to see. And for those fans that didn't get a chance to come out, the text number is still alive where you can actually have a swab kit sent to your house. We didn't really talk about it on the podcast, but there's a young woman by the name of Kayla who is a recent graduate from Bowie State that's got sickle cell. And we're trying to help her find a match. Mm-hmm. And all it comes down to with that is she needs someone that's African-American to get swabbed that could potentially be a match for her because only someone that's African-American can help her with her disease. And if I were to catch a blood cancer disease, I need someone that's Asian to help me out. And she's got less than a 29% chance of finding someone because there's just not a lot of people on the list. So I really appreciate Be The Match coming out, all the fans that came out to support. everybody on TV and radio, my man DJ Flex, just kind of sharing all that stuff, because the tailgate we do out there, if you all ever get a chance, make sure you stop on by. We do it for charity, and this was a charity that meant a lot to me, and that's why all the hard work doesn't really bother me, because I know that it was going to potentially help some people out down the road.
That's awesome, man. It really is. It really
But
is.
I appreciate you mentioning that. We try and keep the tailgate stuff out of this, but speaking of which, our man Reggie from North Carolina didn't get a chance to come up to the tailgate, but he did get a chance to text in on the DMV listener line. Reggie from NC, hope you fellas are well. I got to say, it was great to see the stadium rocking with a victory. Things started off pretty rocky, but then Heinicke settled down. His wide receivers are going to have to fight for balls to avoid pick sixes like the one yesterday. So glad to get the dub, hoping from a strong run from here till end of season. Stack wins one at a time. And
That's good stuff.
we're 7-1 when the team rushes more than 150 yards. So we know what the recipe is to win. We rode the back of Antonio Gibson last year. The difference this year is we got Brian and we got AG.
Mm-hmm.
I somewhat feel bad for JD McKissick until I see how much he's getting paid to do nothing right now. I
Well,
mean,
his number's gonna get called, bro. So don't feel too sorry. It's gonna get called right when they start keying on B-Rob and AG. McKissick's gonna be a thief in the night, and he's gonna make it happen. So, but I didn't mean to interrupt you.
now the thing is, there's only so many positions on the field. So
Right.
you're not going to have B-Rob, AG, and JD out there. Unless you're listening, Scott Turner, I would love to see a full house backfield with those three guys back there. That would be, I mean, who do you try and key in on a defense? And for those that don't know, a full house backfield is three running backs essentially, or potentially running backs lined up as fullbacks beside a quarterback. And you don't know where that ball is going to go. So something like that play design, because JD had 1 carry for 4 yards and he had 2 targets for 0 catches. And I think that pick 6 was a pass that was going to JD. And it kind of made me wonder if AG is able to do what he's doing. He had 3 catches for 18 yards and a touchdown on 4 targets. And AG had 10 carries for 59 yards, averaging 5.9. Do we need a JD? And I know we just signed him, but the trade market's coming up. Could we dangle him out there and get a lineman, get someone else that could help out? Because I'm not saying it's going to make a big difference, but he's an asset that we're not utilizing because we've got other weapons. And I'm not taking Brian Robinson out on running plays. And Antonio gives me the same threat style that JD gives me. So what do you want to do?
Tough decision. And I'm
It
going to say
is.
it's above my pay grade, brother. I'm going to let that go.
But we know for a fact they're listening because I was at an event and a couple of them made comments about the show. But, you know, it just, if I'm a defense or if I'm Scott Turner, I would rather have Antonio Gibson in because he gives me more of a serious threat to run, but he can also catch. Whereas if it's JD, his run plays are mainly draws and he can catch. So I've got more of my playbook available when I've got AG in and when I've got B-Rob in versus JD. I'm not knocking JD at all. The guy is phenomenal. He's a weapon. We would not have won that Falcons game last year without him. But it's just something to think about. If we can't take advantage of this young man's skill set, then let's see if we can get some assets for him, because it would be nice to potentially pull something back, because there is no market for William Jackson. And he came back and said he didn't ask for a trade. Well, maybe you didn't ask for it, Will, but your agent did or someone did because it got out there.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah.
There would be a market for a JD. You saw what Christian McCaffrey went for to the 49ers with all those picks. I'm not saying JD is a McCaffrey by any means, but the young man has a track record and people know what he can do in this league.
Well, I guess call me a toddler or preteen who wants to take his ball and go home with it, because I don't want to let the brother go. I understand his value, but possibly trade value, but I'm going to take my ball and go home. I'm not letting anybody else play with it. So you good with me, brother. And I know he's good with you, but no, stay home. Stay home. We need everybody we can get, because we're about to go into this long stretch. You know, we're 7 games in, and we've got what 10 more to go. So anything could happen, and I don't want to let anybody go. We need all the pieces that we can get. See, it's going to your head already. Look at you. The wind's going to your head already.
Nah, man. No, I just
calm down, Ted. Calm down.
I want assets that we can use, man. And if people are talking last year, trade Deron Payne, get rid of Deron Payne. He's not going to sign here. And then, we let go of people and we don't get stuff in return for them a lot. So, and who knows? This is a game of attrition. And I'm not rooting for anyone to get banged up or someone to drop. But if you start to see his snap count going down and his targets going down, it's legitimately something to think about, even though I think that trade deadline is coming up in November. So it's the 24th right now. Might not have a ton of time on that.
The 1st, right? November 1st?
I think it's November 1st, if I'm not mistaken. So that's just, 7-8 days from now? I'm like JP Finley. I'm not too good at math, even though I'm Asian. So, we'll have to count that later. Hey, it's okay. I can say it. I'm the Asian one.
You're right. You can. I'm not going to say a word. I'll laugh, but I'm not going to say anything.
I actually had a Commanders fan walk up to me during the game when I'm sitting in the seat, and it was a timeout. And he said, "Man, I didn't have a bad time in Chicago. I'm sorry you did." And I actually had to tell him, I was like, "I'm glad you didn't have a bad time, but there's a little bit difference between you and me." And it's like that Dr. Dre song, like, what's the difference between me and you? And he's a little lighter skinned than I am, and I'm a little darker than he is. And those were the slurs that were being thrown at me. Not to bring it back to that, but there's just different things happening in the stadium, and it is what it is. But
they were ignorant people, man.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it. But Taylor was asked about the doubters, and I admittedly am a doubter of Heinicke. And we've had people chime in. I think you know what you get with him. He's 8-8 as a starter. But one thing you also get is exciting football. And that's what we got yesterday. They asked Taylor in his press conference how he handles that.
Taylor, there's always a question we ask the player, your teammates, about, do they feed off of your energy? I'm curious, whenever the conversation about you comes up, it's always like, yeah, Taylor Heinicke, good. But do you feed off of that, the constant questioning of what you are?
No, I don't. I've said this before. I don't care about the doubters. I don't care what they have to say. I care about the people who believe in me, and I want to prove them right. That means more to me than anyone else that has something negative to say. So, that was kind of the message, last night that Rivera gave us and what Coach Scott gave us. And again, he's right, man. I want to prove the people that believe in me right more than the doubters wrong. I could care less about those people.
My man.
And I know somewhere Sabah is so happy, smiling right now, because she is the biggest Heinicke fan out there, short of Taylor's mom and probably his sister, because he got off of her couch. But he definitely showed it today or yesterday. I still too tired, don't know what day it is. I need to see this week in, week out. And let's just keep this roller coaster going.
Well, Ted, 6 days in a wake up, or 5 days in a wake up, you will see it again, brother.
Yeah.
So just all I ask you to do, and all I ask our listeners and viewers, is just put your seatbelt on and cinch it down a little bit and get ready for the ride, because it's going to be a roller coaster. So we're ready for it. We're built for this. We're built for this.
And since we did our show last, they moved, Carson Wentz to short-term IR. So that means Heinicke, or a combination of Heinicke and Howell, depending on what happens, assuming nothing, Taylor doesn't get hurt, but someone else is going to be starting for the next 3 games, because Carson just missed that 1 game and he's out a minimum of 4. So we know that someone else is going to be at the helm for the next 3. And I'm hoping it's going to be 4, because he gives us a good shot. And there was a guy in the stands I was going back and forth with, saying, he was one of the ones screaming, put Howell in, before the second quarter was over, because Heinicke wasn't doing well. Yeah. Saying you can't put Howell in. You can't do that to that young man. He's not prepared for it right now. And you've got other guys on that squad that believe in Taylor. So let's see what he can do. And I was thinking of you when I was saying this. He's got some cobwebs right now. Let him get that rust off, and we'll see what happens. And Rivera's teams typically do not make second half adjustments at all. They're the anti-opposite Joe Gibbs in that aspect. But they made some when they came out that locker room. And hats off to them for doing it. I saw one play where McLaurin was in the backfield.
Yeah. You're like, what the heck?
Yeah. Because we're used to seeing Curtis back there.
Yeah.
But to put Terry back there, I mean, where was this play calling when Wentz was in there? You know, I didn't see a wildcat run when Carson was there. I'm not trying to say it's controversial or what's going on, but why are we seeing this ingenuity now when we didn't see it against the Bears on Thursday? And okay, yeah, the Bears game was a short week, so maybe that's a bad example. But against the Titans, maybe go wildcat with Rodgers there when you've got 1st and goal from the 2-yard line. Because that's a big man.
Exactly.
You know, what 2 weeks too late. I want consistency from the coaching staff and the players. Something we need as a fan base. I got asked on Fox 5, what's it going to take for the team not to be in the headlines with all this Dan Snyder stuff? And I said, realistically, it's going to take consistent winning. It's going to take years and years of winning and not being in the headlines for other stuff. And that's what it's going to take to get this fan base back. Because, man, they're hungry. They want to come back.
Yeah. I had a guy said, hey, Rally, I really do appreciate your positivity, but I just can't get into it as long as Dan Snyder's there. And I said, well, man, Dan Snyder doesn't control my happiness. And with you saying that, then he has pretty much won over you. I'm not going to do it. You know, I'm just not. And so I called in yesterday at the post game and I said, I'm not going to let anybody take me off of my high of what I want to do. So talk bad about me all you want to, going to the games and spending the money and whatever have you, but I'm going to live my life. It's my money and I'm going to enjoy myself like I want everyone else to. And I'm not going to allow what someone has done to deteriorate the fan base control me and mine. I'm a grown man.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
I'm right there with you, man. And I got to go to an event that the team had with Joe Theismann, Doug Williams, and Mark Rippon last Thursday. It was
nice,
a top-notch event. So we were in the Washington Gold on the club level, and you've got Joe, Doug, and Mark. And I know all the guys. Actually, story that no one really knows, I used to do a TV show with the team back in the day, and I didn't make the show because my mom was in the hospital. Theismann called me up from the show and checked in on me to make sure I was okay. And I've had his cell phone number ever since. And it's, you know, that's the type of guy that Joe is. And to get a chance to sit there that night and hear these guys talk about the glory days and relive that with a bunch of other fans, the place was packed. It was standing room only at the stadium. And then Theismann threw the team for a loop. He said, you've heard enough from us. I want to hear from you guys. And they don't ask, or they don't let you ask questions at these events. They hold the microphone up there the entire time. You and I went to the Jason Wright one, and you don't get to ask stuff. And you could see some of the team employees just sweat dripping down their brow because no one knew what people were going to ask.
Unscripted is always the best, baby.
Oh, man. Theismann called that audible, and he was running around like Heinicke, just waiting for someone to get open. And everybody was respectful. And it was so good. And one thing he said during it was Terry and Curtis and Jahan went to dinner with Art and Gary and Ricky, the posse. Those of you that don't know who they are, you're a little too young, look it up. And when I put that tweet out there, it got over 100,000 looks. So don't tell me that this fan base is dead, that they don't care anymore, because that right there is proof that people still are there. Some are just maybe, I don't want to say a little ashamed to put the gear on, or they don't want to buy the new gear. They haven't bought in yet. So we still got people on the fence, and games like yesterday are what's going to bring them back on the, I don't want to say our side, but the burgundy and gold side.
Yeah. The B&G, we rep it to the day we're dead and cold.
We do. And we had Raphael, who actually chimed in last week, sent us a text message today And in the text message, it's actually a picture of Aaron Rodgers lying on the ground. I didn't know that we could receive picture messages on here, so that was hilarious. And those of you out there, don't start sending us a bunch of weird pictures, but it's saying, like I said, we'll melt the cheese, nachos, anyone. Victory Monday. And then he said in here, the more weapons we have Sunday was a blast, stumping the cheese. Once a Redskin for many years with the bow and arrow sign, and one day we woke up as a commander, riding the horse again with our spurs. Well, Sunday we'll get our lucky horseshoes back and stump the field for disrespect they gave us. We'll strip those horseshoes and put on some lucky shoes on this coming Sunday. 28-14 victory over the Colts. So he's already picking us to beat the Colts 28-14 this weekend.
Wow.
And
okay.
I think we're underdogs. I'm almost positive we opened up as dogs. I'm curious what that line's changing to now that Sam Ehlinger is going to be starting for them. And this was a text from Naya, who is not a Scott Turner fan. She feels like Scott's play calling is holding the team back. But I like how Heinicke handled himself after that pick six. Overall, a good game. And I'm assuming that was just her autocorrect. But it's hilarious to me how many people out there still call him Tyler, and they just can't get his first name right. It's just
Kirk.
Oh yeah, and he's coming back next 2 weeks. But you know, I'm doing live TV. You're not correcting the anchors when they make a mistake or saying anything. But the anchor I was on with today said Tyler a couple of times, and man, I want to just chime in and say his name is Taylor. It just, it drives me a little crazy.
Give him the old elbow. It's Taylor.
But if we go 2 out of the next 3, then we are 5-4. Am I doing the math right? Yeah. And Carson's eligible to come back. What do you do?
Well, Ted, I'm a firm believer that you go with the hot hand, and I would have to see more from Carson. I have to be able to see him get out of that ducking phase and balling up, if you will. Now, I know he doesn't have a great set of wheels on him ever since he got his injury, but I need to be able to see just a little bit more, and then maybe asking too much, even though, yes, he's been in the league, he's getting all this money. But one thing that they said was, and I might have this mixed up, but you're going to get the point where I'm going with this. One system was words. I think this system is numbers, or I could have it backwards. But nevertheless, the terminology just still, I don't believe is, I think he knows it, but he doesn't know it. Like Taylor knows, like you said, hey, he just closed his eyes and the ball's going to be there. I don't think Carson at this moment knows that. So I'm always a firm believer of you go with the hot hand. And if he's gotten you that far, and as a coach, don't try to doggone put that, round peg in a square, I've said it wrong. But anyway, you know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, square peg, round hole, regardless.
Round hole, yeah. Don't do it as much as you may want to. Read the body language of your players. And if your players are, read it and keep them seated. I'm a firm believer of that, man. And so once again, I told you before, I saw body language with Carson in, and I saw a different body language in with Heinicke in. I just did, man. I didn't see the shoulder slumps and the head drops. I don't know if you paid attention to it, but I have seen it. And anybody else, if you've seen it, you let me know. But I pay attention, and there are a lot of times when the shoulders were just slump, and it's just like they felt the wind got knocked out of them. Whereas Heinicke, even though things were bad, I still saw it. Now maybe that's something that the coach talked to him about. I don't know, but that's what I saw.
No, and I don't want to say you. I never felt that we were out of that game. I never felt that the Packers were running away with it. And at a certain point, I felt that we were going to get it. And maybe that's because you and I get a chance to look at the game a little more in depth than others. We're going through, watching all 22, hearing different stuff, but knowing how depleted the Packers were, knowing that Bakhtiari wasn't playing and that Aaron's got a bad problem with his hand, and they don't have Cobb, and his other receivers are bad, and that they're basically crumbling right now. And we saw it right before our eyes this Sunday. I never felt that we were out of it. And I feel that Heinicke and his teammates, more importantly, felt the same thing.
Yeah.
I feel like those guys had faith, whereas like the body language that you're talking about with, and I don't want to say this is a Wentz thing, but there were times in those games when we lost with Carson where you never felt that we were going to take that next step, or that he was going to overcome the adversity, or he was going to be able to break away from that sack. You felt that yesterday. And this is actually a question that Pete Haley asked Ron Rivera.
If Taylor proves to be, the effective quarterback for you all and grabs the starting job in the coming weeks, will there be like a little bit of conflict almost knowing what you invested in Carson and maybe having Taylor prove to be the more successful guy?
Not necessarily. I think this is about playing one game at a time, focusing on one game at a time. And when we get to that position, then I'll deal with it.
So it's an interesting debate and it's an interesting thought, but we've got to, like Coach said, go through one game at a time. Let's hopefully get back to 500 this weekend. Let's see what we can do, and we'll see what the record is by the time Carson's healthy again and can potentially start. Because I don't believe a starter should lose his job to injury. And we all know why Carson lost a job. It's his finger. Would he have been benched? Yeah, I think Carson would have been benched eventually if he didn't turn this thing around. But like you said, Taylor's got the locker room. He's got the guys around him that are rooting for him. Do you mess with that mojo? Do you mess with that chemistry? Especially someone like Rivera, who's on the hot seat right now? I don't know if you can afford to. I'll be really looking forward to seeing it. And I'm 1,000% all in for this Heinicke roller coaster until the Wentz one maybe gets back on track, but we'll see. But with that being said, appreciate you guys joining us for another episode of the DMV Mess Hall. Rally and I are going to be back this Wednesday talking about the Colts. Looking forward to previewing that game with y'all. And I can't wait, man. I got to find me an Indianapolis recipe to make for this weekend.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll be sending you pictures from the tailgate. And for everybody listening, there will be a rally. The information will be posted. But just stay tuned, all right? And thank you again for listening. Thank you again for subscribing. Thank you guys for all that you do to help us. And it really does mean a lot. Your clicks do not go unnoticed. So that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of the DMV Mess Hall with Tailgate Ted and Rally Captain. And don't forget, rep it hard or don't rep it at all. And we'll be out.